Hey TikTok, I might have to make a YouTube video on this because I just realized I got a lot to say. But I'm gonna try my best to make this short for TikTok because don't nobody like watching the long videos on TikTok. So to elaborate on this idea of spouses over kids, I just want to say this one thing. I used to believe it because I used to be Christian. The reason I stopped believing it is because the more I tried to explain it, the less sense it made to me. So for those of you who still believe this whole idea of spouse over kids, prioritizing your spouse over kids to have a happy household, here's what I will say. First and foremost, if you will prioritize your spouse over your kids, you are a lot more likely to allow your spouse to get away with things that harm your kids. You are a lot more likely to overlook some things that may potentially harm your children for the sake of keeping the relationship. More than that, though, what I don't think y'all realize is this concept is very much rooted in patriarchy, misogyny, capitalism. Just the whole idea of hierarchy, where it's God, man, woman, children, is an indicator that it's rooted in this system and not so much in effectiveness and happiness. Because in this system, we are programmed to believe that women are servants, men are leaders, but they need our help. We're also programmed to believe that children stay in a child's place while simultaneously giving them adult responsibilities and expecting them to have the emotional depth and intelligence of adults. So essentially, from me really just paying attention to how our society runs, we have this cycle of teaching children that adults are more important than them, even though they're the vulnerable ones, they're the dependent ones, they're the pure and innocent ones. And as resilient as they are, they cope with it, they adjust, a lot of them mask, and they just do everything they can to try to please their adults. Then they become adults and not only expect another adult to finally prioritize them, they expect the kids to do what they had to do, even though somewhere inside of them they knew it wasn't the right thing. So I don't think that a lot of people who still believe in this spouse over kids thing realize that when they're explaining it, they say some very weird and unhealthy things. One thing that I was just told is you prioritize your spouse so you don't lose your relationship to the kids. How in the world does two capable adults, two autonomous adults lose a relationship to kids unless one or both of you is dependent on the other, which is already unhealthy, and you don't see kids as human beings? Which brings me to more of my societal observation. A lot of you treat kids more like trophies, more like pawns, more like accessories than you do human. And because they are so resilient, you think that, oh, they know I love them. They know I care about them. They know that everything is fine. They're happy. They're healthy. They're taken care of. They got clothes on their back. They got food in their mouths. They have a way to school, to learn. Like, they have all of these things. They should be fine. When in reality, you may very well be neglecting their emotional health, their mental health, their spiritual health, which essentially stunts their development into an adult. So I just want to challenge you all who are so dead set on putting your spouse first to ask yourself, why do you truly feel the need to do that? Are you afraid that your spouse will leave if you don't put them first before your kids? Because if you are, there is an imbalance in your relationship already. Because there should be no competition with your children between either of you. I also want to challenge y'all to understand the difference in the relationship between you and your children and you and your spouse. Your children are your blood relative, and they are your direct descendant. Children may leave the house, but they never leave you unless they absolutely feel like they need to leave you. But even then, there is always a connection to your children because they have half of your DNA. They are your bloodline. Your spouse is someone you chose to do life with. It's an interpersonal relationship. They could leave tomorrow because they just feel like the relationship doesn't work and you would be left alone. A tragedy could also strike and you would be left alone. The similarity to that is kids can also be taken by tragedy. But the connection you have to your children is always going to be different. It's always going to be stronger because they are your descendant. They are your bloodline. They are part of you genetically. And I am saying that as someone who has lost a child, but someone who has also lost the love of my life. Two very different feelings and two very different experiences as far as grief and pain. And none of this is to take away from the connection you have with your spouse. You absolutely don't want to have children and then lose sight of your relationship. But instead of prioritizing your spouse, you and your spouse come together and work together on your shared responsibility of the children. And you teach your children boundaries. You teach your children the difference between your relationship with them and your relationship with your spouse, so that you can still nurture your relationship with your spouse. There is no reason for you to have to prioritize your spouse unless your relationship is already unhealthy, because two capable adults should be able to understand that when they made the decision to have children, those children became a priority for both of them. And both adults should also understand that when y'all made the decision to have children, those children became the priority, which means that if it came down to picking your spouse over your child, and let me add the nuance that I am talking about children who are born, not fetuses. You should protect that child before you protect your spouse. If you cannot protect your children from harm that your spouse may inflict on them, you have already created an unhealthy dynamic in your home. Because your children are the vulnerable ones, the dependent ones, the innocent ones. And adults have the capacity to know right from wrong far better than your children. So regardless of them being your spouse, they should always be held accountable when it comes to how they interact with your children, spouse or no spouse, which is what this society has taught against, what this society has programmed against, and is part of why it is in such disarray. And that's my TED Talk. I said I was going to keep it short, but I told y'all I had a lot to say. So what I'm going to do is end this here. I love y'all. Be good to one another, but most importantly, be good to yourselves. I'm going to make another video at some point and put it on YouTube so I can really break down my thoughts on this. But hopefully, y'all got something out of this video to at least make you think, at least make you reconsider. Never take somebody's word for it. Always do your own research, your own soul searching. But I hope that it at least got y'all thinking. Hope y'all have a great day.